Yeah.
But I mean, the last audit we
had
had was
audit that we sent.
2018,
No,
wasn't it?
no, the last audit that we sent, 22, 20, the fiscal year 22, 23 was the last one that we sent to the state.
Good, bad, or indifferent, you should always expect your CFO to be honest with you and deliver you the news. Whether that's good or bad, it doesn't matter. Numbers are numbers. But if you don't know the facts of the situation, much like a good defense attorney, you cannot be helpful. So we've corrected that at this point. We continue to put in AP every day that we receive it. But I can honestly report to you today that nothing material is outstanding. Now, we may have received invoices as I'm sitting here today. They're not into the system until tomorrow, but we do a very good job of reconciling those invoices and getting them into the system so we know our true position. I mean, that's table stakes as far as I'm concerned. The other part of that too is understanding your cash position relative to the amount of checks that you have outstanding. Because quite honestly, there's no way to tell unless you do it manually with our banking system. There's no way to tell exactly your cash position relative to the checks outstanding unless you do the calculation yourself.
Right.
I have a spreadsheet that I keep every single day, Monday through Sunday, of where we are at. And I reconcile them myself. And I can always tell Kathy or any one of you board members exactly where we sit on a cash basis with respect to our obligations outstanding relative to the cash we have on hand. So that's also table stakes. Just have to know that as the CFO. So,
Well, and I like what you say about, paying our bills within 30 to 60 days. I mean, I just think it looks bad when you're going past that and possibly losing vendors, because you don't pay
Especially
your
when your
bills.
debt is to, we're here to serve the community, and when your debt is within the community, that's a hard.
so that's a great point. We pay our community members first. We don't like to see any outstanding community member debt, like from a Baumgartner's or a Deckers or anything like that. We don't like to see that. So if it comes up and we see it, we're the first to pay it. I received an email from Carrie one night, and the next day that bill was paid. I mean, that's just taking care of our community. Other people, in the same vein, I mean, we don't want this accrued AP outstanding to be way too large and then get dropped as a purchaser. We haven't been dropped yet, to my knowledge, anywhere since I've taken over, and I've had a ton of conversations, well within the hundreds. We have something like 1,900 vendors, or from 1,300 vendors, or something like that. And I've had well over 100 conversations since I've been here. And I feel really good about the trajectory of my plan, and I've mapped it out in a financial model, and it makes perfect sense. We just really, internally, we just needed more fiscal discipline, and we really needed an accurate, clear picture of where we're at, good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter. It's just, we need to know where we're sitting.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, that's the punchline. Is if we don't know, we can't fix it. It's kind of like your doctor, right? If you don't tell them everything, you can't address your issues. So I feel really good about where we're at there and our plan going forward. It had a reduction. This is going to seem familiar from last month. We did have a reduction in long-term debt or long-term liabilities of 9.4K. That's an interest expense that we had there. And we'll see that as long as we have. One thing I will say is that we have coupon payments coming out on a bond note that we have outstanding. And so those are, I believe, yearly payments, if I'm recalling correctly. And I know we're caught up there, so I'm not too concerned about any of that. Something that I am watching out for, something that you all need to know. I can't log into our tax system right now. There's a PIN that I never received from the previous administration. So I'm working with the state right now to figure out exactly what I need to do to get that PIN and make sure that our tax liabilities are paid. So it's on my radar. I'm taking care of it. And then with respect to the cash flow analysis that Carrie was talking about, I plan on having a solution by end of next week, if not before. So we're going to work on that as well. It's front loaded. On the cash flow statement side of the house, my favorite statement of the three financial statements, you'll see that we had a net income of 92K. So that's, as compared to last month, that's great. So we generated revenue, more AR, and less cash. unfortunately. So if you look at our net cash provided by operating activities, you'll see that negative 574.38. A lot of that has to do with the AP that we paid out, because that's where you're going to see your operating activities come out to. There is a breakout deeper into this deck all the way in the back that'll show you line by line. But again, to Carrie's point, it's kind of hard to tell the actual performance relative to the payers that we have, cash coming in, the period that it was received, all that. So we want to make sure we break that out for you going forward. Investing activities, this was mostly balance forward corrections that we made with respect to things being thrown into the system, not properly allocated during the correct time period. There was a habit of receiving something on one day when the bill was for another day in the past, and then stamping that as, oh, well, we received it on November 12th, for example. We received it on November 12th, so it goes into the system as November 12th and not August 25th, just for example. So that's going to sway your financial statements left, right, and center. So you can't have that. And we corrected that, and that's kind of where we're sitting there. Financing activities, we just paid down that $9,400 in interest there. So that's kind of going to be on a normal basis. Our key takeaways, again, I have it kind of bolded out there. Net increase or decrease in cash is the most important line item on the cash flow statement. And yes, it's negative, but it's not a bad thing because we paid back a ton of AP.
Yeah.
Right. So we're doing what we have to do to be financially responsible. It may be the case that next month it's negative as well until we get fully caught up. But it's not a bad thing as long as we're meeting our short-term obligations and our long-term obligations.
But you're just cleaning up old stuff that needs done.
Unfortunately, yes.
Basically.
And it's great to say this. We're actually in a really good spot when we look at the historicals. So we're talking, 24, 25, 23, 24. We're in a really good spot when we think about those financial statements. There are some things kind of still lingering for FY26 that we're trying to get a beat on. There was some capital projects that we did here at the hospital that were kind of misallocated. One of them was the CT machine. It's not a bad thing. It's just misallocated in the sense of it wasn't booked properly in the system. And because it's such a big purchase, it's actually material when you think about the financial statements. So we want to make sure that it's reflected not only in the proper period, but depreciated against its useful life in the correct way. So you'll see kind of our depreciation expense went up for this period, and then the previous period we actually didn't have a depreciation expense.
I don't remember seeing us having depreciation in the previous financials.
That's correct.
It didn't really come out till the end. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad to see that we're tracking the depreciation.
Yeah, and so and then next month is the amortization of all of our intangible assets, right? So any software services that we have will be captured there across the useful life as well. If we were, a tax-paying company, that'd be incredibly important. But we have a ton of capital equipment throughout the hospital and everything. So we have to make sure that we're capturing all of that depreciation in a meaningful way as we want to replace things and figure out the capital budget from a depreciation account, basically to then go out and replace that equipment and all that. So that's super important and definitely on my radar. If you want to flip the page here, we have a snapshot of the aged accounts receivable. Again, usual suspects at the top there, the hospital, Medicare, and self-pay. I will tell you that despite our ongoing integration challenges with Inova, I do feel good about the activity that they're providing. They did clear, and again, it's hard to tell what periods, but they did clear something like 881K of aged AR out of the system, which is great. So that turns that AR into cash. However, I can't tell you until I get that analysis. I can't tell you exactly in what period that AR was incurred. So it's important to figure that out. I'd like to see this number go way down. And some of this also is due to the fact that we haven't actually booked some of these pieces of revenue into the system, given the fact that we had that turnover. So that was part of it, right? So there's cash pay, and then there's the contractual adjustment part as well that has to be rectified. But we are on it, and we are going to make it right. So just maybe another 2 weeks or so, let this new person get stood up, let everything kind of normalize, and then we'll get in there and fix it. So I feel really good about where this sits. With the clinical aspect, though, we see self-pay and Medicare obviously as we see self-pay and Medicare obviously as the two largest components of this HDAR. To be quite frank with you, it's probably going to stay that way for a little bit until we can figure out the best way to tackle the self-pay. And I know I've talked to this board here about some solutions with respect to self-pay and how to get that off of our balance sheet onto someone else's. I'm in the middle of negotiations with those third-party payers right now. And when I say third-party payers with respect to self-pay, I don't mean insurance companies, I mean credit agencies, right? So the idea is somebody would come in, they would sign up for like a care credit or something of that effect. And then we would get paid. Right now it's sitting at 68 cents on the dollar. So they get that 32% for them. But I'd like to lower that number. I don't think that's a great split for us. There are some trade-offs though. So we pay a lot on the dollar amount, but the trade-off is they'll basically accept anything. So it's a risk versus reward thing for them. And I totally understand that, but I think we can get to a cleaner number that works for both of us. Maybe an 80-20 or something like that is fine. Okay. You want to flip that one page here? I kind of hit some of these highlights already, but I'm happy to walk through them really quick. We submitted the FY24 and 25 financials for audit by DZA for DZA. It's an 8-week turnaround time until we get our audit report. I'm monitoring closely to make sure that they stay on task, on time, and on target because we can't afford any slip ups with respect to the timeline. So I'm contacting them every other day, always in their ear, working with our outsourced controller, David, to make sure that he's tracking anything that they need. Because of course, during an audit, you're going to have the initial upload of your financials, and then there are going to be questions back asking for support. And we don't know what support they need until they ask for it. Because what they do is they go in and test certain areas of your financials. And so they'll try and rebuild back what your AP is for a certain period in a month or a year. And they'll say, okay, we're missing, 500K, 700K, and 800K. We need support for these 3 items. And then we give them a look at that support and documentation, whether it be invoice or if it's a capital project, we'll have the analysis from the, I'm blanking on the name, the architect, right? So architect fees, things of that nature, things that are not necessarily equipment related expenses, they'll want to see support for, right? We will submit our financials for the FY24 Medicare cost report for the Manor. So a quick caveat on this, guys. I think I mentioned it to this group a while back, but somehow, some way, FY23 numbers were submitted to CMS for FY24 to continue cash payments. Mm-hmm. I hopped on the call with Amy Guymond up there at the CMS office for the state of Wyoming, explained the situation. I also talked to Myers and Stauffer on the same call and essentially told them, hey, look, we're ready to rock and roll with the financials. We just have to get the report in. So I reached out to Durbin & Co. to kind of set that up. And so the timeline is as follows. We're going to submit actually tonight or tomorrow. I'd like to get it in before Saturday, but tonight or tomorrow, we're going to submit all the financials over to Durbin & Co. They're going to create the Medicare cost report by the 30th of this month. And then we will submit that Medicare cost report as soon as I get it back. So I'm assuming on the 30th, I'll get it back. I'll submit it right there to Myers and Stauffer. I've already got a link set up with the gentleman from Myers and Stauffer. I'm going to call him and email him to ensure that he received it. Him and I are going to hop on a call, run through the quick checklist of everything that he needs to be successful and have that in. And then we should be good to go. Now, the caveat is if we bill between now and then, before we submit, we would have to resubmit our CMS payments. So we'd have to back them out of the system and then resubmit them. It's honestly a accounting nightmare and it's going to require a ton of rework. We wouldn't get paid for it anyways. So the plan is to submit everything by Q7 is that Friday. That's that first Friday in February. So we're going to submit everything on that first Friday. It gives everything kind of time to percolate within the system and make sure everyone has everything they need. And then we're going to hit that submit button. So we're only going to be a week behind on that revenue. And quite honestly, we're not going to miss it. So it's a plan. It's one that I'm holding Durbin & Co. to. And I feel really good about where we're at with that. So if we hadn't had the financials rectified, if they were still a mess and we couldn't properly allocate, it would be a bigger discussion. We'd be very concerned. The penalties are, if I don't get this done within 60 days, which we're not even going to touch the 60-day mark, but if I didn't get it done within 60 days, we'd be prohibited from receiving any CMS payments on the Manor side, which spells disaster for us. So I'm not going to let that happen. I'm working around the clock to make sure it doesn't happen. And it's obviously at the forefront of my mind. So, next item on that list, I already told you this, but we did repay that $702,000 revolver, very minimal interest incurred for all the reasons that were discussed. We did hire the new accountant, and I would like to kick off our forensic audit now that our numbers are correct for FY24 and FY25. They're in a really good spot. I'd like to kick off the forensic audit no later than the end of February of 2026. And again, we're in discussions with PYA, DVO, and one that I'm blanking on right now that Allison actually recommended to us. And so that said, there needs to be a reconciliation between all the stuff that we changed and all the stuff that we kind of unwound and what they find, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a little bit of rework, which is why I wanted to do the forensic audit first. However, we were under the gun. We had no other option but to do the actual state level audit timed out. And so that's what we did. But we do have a complete audit trail of everything that we changed. We have it all in Excel. We know exactly what we did. And we'll forward that over to them so that they can unwind it as well and then take another holistic look at it. Because as they do this forensic audit, they're trying to get into the mindset of what was actually happening and the controls in place in the financial operations of the company, right, of the hospital. We want to make sure that they have a holistic view of that. And so they're going to have to unwind, rewind, do their thing. But we want to make sure that they have near perfect information, or as perfect as we can get it to them as possible. So
when did I miss it? What periods are they doing?
So I'd like them to start with the closest period first, so the last 12 months. So that's FY25, and then I'd like them to go to FY24. And there was discussion about them going back as far as 2019.
Because that's when the last one was done.
I don't actually know.
There's never been one.
Yeah.
Forensic audit. There's been audit,
Oh,
not
yeah.
a forensic audit.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last audit we
know
had
the
was
audit that we sent.
2018,
No,
wasn't it?
no, the last
20,
audit that we
20.
sent, yeah, 20 the fiscal year 22-23 was the last one that we sent to the state.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last audit
Yeah,
we
know
had
the
was
audit that we sent.
2018,
No,
wasn't it?
no, the last
20,
audit that
20.
we sent, yeah, the fiscal year 22-23 was the last one that we sent to the state.
And so not to beat a dead horse on this audit piece, but there were 2 CFOs between the last audit and this one here. I'm blanking on the names, and the names don't really matter, but there was an extension requested by the first CFO that I'm thinking of for a 60-day extension request. Unfortunately, they didn't get the audit in, they didn't get the numbers right. And then the previous administration took over, and essentially it didn't happen. I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, we were between a rock and a hard place in the sense that they weren't giving us any more extensions. There was no more love to be had there, and we were just kind of up against it. And so we submitted as quickly as we possibly could. Within 51 days, we did this, and I'm really tremendously proud of David and the rest of the team, honestly, for all their hard work in this, because it was not easy. It was not easy to unwind this stuff up. I did receive an email from Alicia Jump on January 12th asking about where our numbers stood. And I was proud to report to her that we did submit all of our figures for FY24 and FY25, and they're with DZA right now. And I just got a very simple yet energetic thank you, Paul. So I didn't hear back, okay, great, but you better be done by XYZ date and all of that. It was more or less like, thank God he's done. So sorry, so great about that.
I talked to her briefly, and I think she would just really appreciate being kept apprised.
Yeah.
You know, if you just keep her, I would talk to her every week or two. Just
Yes.
let her know that things are on track or they're not on track or
Yes.
whatever.
I think in my email back to her, I told her that, you know, I'm in contact with DCA on a weekly, if not daily basis. And that if anything changes with respect to timeline, I'm more than happy to reach out to you. But I think your suggestion is totally appropriate.
I would kind of keep her.
Yeah. Maybe a weekly call, maybe on a Friday, just touch base, see how our day's going, and say, oh, by the way, we're still tracking towards that 8-week timeline, and we look forward to getting you all the information that you possibly can have. Yes, sir.
So just in relationship of the two audits, just so what we'd really like to see is the forensic audit match the numbers in our regular audit, right? That would be the perfect outcome. So that's what we're striving for. Is that a good example or a good explanation of what we're looking for?
So the forensic audit's purpose is a little different than our audit for the state. The forensic audit is looking for things that are not quite aligned with everything that should be happening within a financial operation. They're not really trying to tie out balances on a trial balance or anything like that. They're looking for things that are
discrepancies, basically.
That's a great way to put it. Discrepancies, outliers, questionable charges, things of that nature. They test processes, right? So they look at our Sage accounting system. They look at our 1,900 vendors, 1,500 vendors. They want to make sure who those vendors are and why they're getting paid, what they're getting paid. If they can tie back invoices to those vendors, who approved those vendors, and when were they approved, things of that nature. They're like the FBI when it comes to financial accounting. So
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So who is David?
David is the outsourced controller that we contracted with a while back.
Okay.
I can't recall the name of it.
The CPA.
He is a CPA.
To see the one
That
that
we
we
Got right off.
So I know anyway, I would like you to let David know we appreciate
Yes, ma'am.
all of his hard work too. I mean, we appreciate everything you do, but
Yeah.
obviously he has helped too. So if
Oh,
you
yeah.
could convey that the board says thank you
Yes,
for
ma'am.
working hard to get everything done.
Yes, ma'am. I will. And then after this, well, this is just essentially the selected commentary on the individual business units that we have in the hospital, our operational units. The first page that you should see, just really quick, if you can find it, it's the patient activity -planner page. And I just want to illustrate really quick if you have it.
Was it?
Oh,
It's
it was that supplement that I gave you.
Okay, I've got it someplace.
Yep, it's that supplement that I gave you on Tuesday. If you don't have that, I got one ready.
It should be right here.
Here, you can take mine.
No, you got it memorized.
Yes, sir. I got it memorized. So you'll see on that patient activity, manner patient activity there. You'll see a positive net income number, and that just illustrates the point that if you don't expense the actual dollar value within the period, you capitalize it on the balance sheet. There you go. It's okay. It's all the way in the back.
I have gone through this and mixed it up a lot.
No worries. So you're gonna essentially capitalize it on the balance sheet, and all that means is that you haven't expensed it out, but it's a debt that you incurred during the period. And so the way we would typically deal with this is through an accrued AP, right? So you accrue the accounts payable, and you would see that kind of clearly delineated on its own line. We historically have not done that. We're in the process of doing that. Before we can do it, I have to get a good handle on exactly what our AP is each month on a normal monthly basis, outside of any outliers, right? So as we think about it, it's all the stuff that we use, all the ins and outs of the pharmacy and the ins and outs of the ER and all the equipment and disposable items that we go through each month and all the services and all of that, for me to get a warm and fuzzy on what to project out forward. However, this is clearly showing you that you have a positive business unit, and that's not the case. So that's why the P&Ls are always misleading. Always look at the balance sheet. Always look at the cash flow statement.
So is this, you come, like, there for a while, some point in our recent history, it didn't feel like we were actually making the money in the manner that our numbers were saying we did. Did you figure out, you just figured out why?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I actually figured out why, I think, month
You're
two.
just gonna
But
say
this
you
is-
didn't just.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that just out.
Yeah,
You know why.
I know exactly
Because
why, yes, ma'am.
Here, 3, 4, 6 months ago, I don't know, we were all talking about, it should be, it says it's making money, but it's not.
That's right.
And you found that.
Yes, and I'll give you a quick explanation as to what's happening there. So we have currently 52 residents in the manor. Of those 52 residents, there are 7 no pays. And so as it sits right now, if you looked at a manor's balance sheet, and you know what I should do? I should include at least a pro forma balance sheet for all these big business units that we can review, separated out. What you would notice is that for the manor, we have roughly $1.1 million in AR, accounts receivable, right? And these could be from people that are here currently or were here within the last fiscal year. So the beginning of FY26 essentially, or it could be a balance forward. So we'd have to look at that. But we have $1.1 million of AR outstanding there. So much like we see on the other sheets with the aged AR, we're at 1.1 million. What's happening right now in the manor is kind of twofold. We have the 7 non-pay residents. And then we also have on the expense side, the operational expense side, we have a ton of travelers, right? So that 200 and some odd K that you see as the net income there, that really is a reflection of just our expenses that we actually pay out for like personnel and payroll, very small amount of operational expense regarding the supplies and things of that nature, but nothing to do with the AP that we pay out to our travelers, because that doesn't hit our salary expense and benefit expense and all that. It'll hit AP, they're a vendor. And so as we think about it, that 200 and some odd thousand is really negative. How much was it? It was like, it's some obscene number that I can't recall right now, but I do know for the fiscal year that we'll lose 2.12 million on the manor if nothing is done. But I'm doing something about it. And so that's not to include the shared services of the dietary here that runs about $880K a year on an average basis. The meals cost roughly $6.12 unburdened with respect to labor, so not including labor. If you include labor, it's really around $12.53, I think I had it at. So when we think about it, if you allocate that $880K over to the manor, we're already at 3 million, right? And so we have that 1.1 change outstanding, that's 4 million. And then if we look at our residents that don't pay, we got one resident, we gave a 30-day notice to, either pay or quit, essentially. For an unrelated reason, he had to leave. But that was $120,000 that we'll never see.
Oh,
Right. So we made some operational changes with respect to how we actually ingest residents into the manor. And it's my hope that as we continue to plus up our homegrown CNAs, reduce our liability or necessity on the contracted CNAs that we're paying triple for, we'll be in a much better spot. And my goal is to maintain, and there's been some discussion this week, so I don't want to overstep my skis here, but there's been some discussion this week on how best to do that, right? So there should be a certain, given our facility, what we are, our presence in the community, there should be some level of solid charity beds that are prevalent in the manor that we have accounted for and that we understand how to kind of either break even on or not lose our hats on. So that's the goal. That's the goal. It doesn't necessarily have to be profitable, but it does have to not cost us almost $7 million if you account for everything in the world in there. This thing.
so the residents that are in non-pay, are those the ones that you're waiting for, like Medicaid approval?
That's correct, and we can speak more about this in executive, but Essentially, yes, the way it works is, this is, of course, Ken, chime in and keep me straight here if you have anything to add, but they can apply for Medicaid and they're going to most likely get denied the first time out. That's a 90-day process, right?
Mhm.
So right then and there, we're already in the hole, 30,000 plus. Then they're going to reapply after that 90 days, and then they're going to have to wait another 90 days. So now that 30K turns into 60K. So if they're not approved on the first time go, all that 30K, that's totally not recoverable, essentially. So now if they get denied the second time, that's 60K, that's essentially not recoverable. And they only go back so far once they're finally approved. And at that point, we're talking 120 plus. And so it's a big drag on the system.
Gotcha.
And so there's a lot of opportunity to rectify the situation within the community. For example, Trissa and I and Rebecca and Kim all had a very great conversation just today about how we needed to go out to the community and have a lot more community engagement, community education on how to structure assets, how to structure your family's assets as you draw near to that chapter of your life. And I can tell you from my own personal experience here, there's people that essentially don't make money whatsoever, but they have a lot of assets on paper. And so because they have a lot of assets on paper that they can't necessarily monetize in any meaningful way, they're denied. And it's unfortunate. It's the way our system works. But I think with the right education and the right opportunity, with maybe some lawyers and some CPAs to help them structure their assets in a meaningful way, that will help reduce their asset burden as they go into this chapter of their life, they can be very successful. And so that's a long-term campaign. It's not something that we can actually kind of put a guidepost to and really force upon people, but it is something we can measure, right? It is something we can go out and make sure that we're making meaningful progress in the community on. And so I look forward to working with Trissa, Kim, and everyone else very closely to make that happen, because there's a ton of opportunity out here. And as a rural healthcare community, we live and die by CMS a lot of ways. And it's super important that we're maximizing the benefit that everyone that we see can get with respect to CMS. So, and that's why the input statement is misleading. So, thanks. That's it for the financial highlights. Let me just make sure I hit everything I wanted to talk about here. Oh, so we had mentioned a lot about security and allocating budget to security. I'm on a weekly meeting basis with the chief of police around here, Chief Thompson, and I see him once a week, and we have a great relationship. And so we tried to brainstorm up some ideas that could work. And one of those ideas was that, as we build out our infrastructure, security infrastructure here, physical security to make us a harder target, to use some terms that they don't know, is probably the short-term solution to a long-term problem. And what I mean by that is, I've already contacted the chief about this too. So having off-duty police officers that want to make some extra cash, stand guard here at the facility, and have them dressed down. They have their sidearm, they have their badge, but they're not in their full kit, right? They're not, with the the nightstick and all that. Yeah, the vest, the tactical vest and all that. No plate carriers or anything like that. But really having a presence at the facility, maybe one or two of them every day, and having that as a short-term solution. The longer-term solution would be essentially to maybe recruit some other people, such as the COs from the honor camp, people that are used to dealing with conflict and unruly individuals that can come in and provide that extra layer of security as we think about our safety here. And then last but not least, I do know that in the National Guard, members have to have a job. And I'm sure there's some slack in the system with respect to National Guard members not having a job, and they would be prime candidates for physical security guards here at Weston County Health Services. So my plan is to reach out to the guard units around here, see who doesn't have a job, what their MOS is, if they're a 68 Whiskey or an 11 Bravo, medics and infantry, that would be ideal. But I can guarantee you that any American soldier could pull security for Weston County Health Services. So we're excited about that. There is budget for that. I remain confident that our budget will only increase and our cash flow will only increase. So paying for it's not really an issue. There are some grants available with respect to this big, beautiful bill and the $210 million that was allocated to the state of Wyoming that we can go out and write out a proposal for and hopefully get some of that money. Yes, sir.
Has the sheriff's office been involved at all in the security issue at the hospital?
The sheriff's office, not to my knowledge. The police,
I got that, but I'm asking if the sheriff's office has been. The only reason I ask is that sheriff's responsible for everything in the county.
People want some crazy stuff, and we always used to dream about it, and now that it's here, people are scared of it. Self-driving cars, electric vehicles. We've been seeing that stuff on TV for how long, hoverboards, all, and we get upset that we don't have the hoverboards and stuff, but the technology we do have that was in those same shows, we shun it and we are scared of it and we don't want to embrace it. And I think every one of us that was sitting around in the 80s and 90s watching those TV shows would be very mad at ourselves as adults now if we weren't taking advantage of all the cool stuff little kids us wanted to play with. So
yeah, you could say we live in a scary time, but I think we live in an exciting. I cannot believe that in my lifetime this is happening. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. And you're right. I spent years saying, man, I wish I had a personal assistant.
We're in the county.
yes, sir.
And he's got good coffee, so you might want to.
You want his pen?
Yeah, hey, but listen, if he's got good coffee, I'm definitely going to reach out.
Yes, I could lead you right to where they make it.
I like these pens.
Yes.
Another thing, Paul, that has worked in other places I've seen is just simply setting up a little room, a little office, and I'm not sure what the night shift is like around here, but
That's a good idea.
where this is kind of their hangout at a night shift, just to come do their reporting or just to be close by and check in on and that kind of stuff.
Yes. And that's actually a lesson that I draw from Philadelphia, for example. Police officers will make rounds at businesses throughout the day and like sign into a logbook, say, hey, Officer so-and-so was here at this time and everything was okay. So that's a lesson well taken and something that we should have happened.
So chair, a desk, and a refrigerator or something.
Absolutely right. Keep it talking the red board.
Thompson was a deputy.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, he knows law enforcement in the county himself well.
Okay. Yes, sir. And he's been very good to us and he's always available. I have his cell phone number.
It is good.
Yeah, he's been absolutely excellent. But the fact remains is that this is a soft target. There's no,
Yes.
I mean, even walking in from the front, you can walk straight back without really having anyone stop you. So closing those doors, getting a scan. Yes, sir.
Maybe executive session, we can go into loopholes.
Yes.
Take it, woman.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
I just wanted to make one last comment is I did look at this on my laptop and I do appreciate all the work that you put into it. I especially appreciate the commentary
Yes, that is.
because then you can look at it and say, oh yeah, these are look fors, that.
Thank you. We have something like 46 business units, individual P&Ls, and I do my best to make sure that we actually have the hardest hitting items, right? So maybe not much of the shared services or cost centers that are not really material, but anything that touches a patient, I think it's important for this board to see. So that's what you'll find. So, and if you have any questions at all about this at any time, you can always come to me and I will do my best to get you an answer right away. So. All right, that's it for the finance piece. I do have.
Claire, do you have any more to add?
So Paul covered a lot. And I just want to say from our perspective that these feel a lot more real than anything we've had in a very long time. And the fact that you accomplished this in 50 days is really awesome.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to let the whole board know about a conversation or something that happened at the end of last week. Paul had reached out to the finance committee and he said that he would have a packet of financials available on Thursday or Thursday. And then when I stopped in on Friday, Paul asked me to speak for a minute, and he said that the financials were not ready because he had found a problem when he was developing them, and he didn't want to give us anything that was inaccurate. And he said he was very embarrassed at the time that he didn't have them ready for us, but I told him that from my personal perspective, I wanted what was right, not what was fast. And I really valued the fact that Paul recognized that, and he didn't want to give us garbage. He wanted to give us what was right. So at that point, I called all the other finance committee members and I told them just to hold off. But I really appreciate that you wanted it to be right.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I just wanted the whole rest of the board to know that. So
Actually, you were more diplomatic. To me, you didn't tell me to hold off. You said you agree with the approach I've taken, and I said I did.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so, do you have some more as far as the CEO report goes?
Yes, I do. So the county commissioners meeting is by now no surprise to anyone. I'm sure most people here, if not everyone, have heard it. It was a difficult meeting for Kathy and I to sit through. However, I think what was said at the county level needed to be said in some way, shape, or form, and that we took their direction and guidance very seriously. And we moved with a purpose to rectify the issue with respect to the financials. At that time, it was a few days before I actually submitted the financials, but I knew for a fact that I was on track, and I felt very confident in saying to them, yes, by the 8th, I would have these in. And there was nothing stopping me from that point. It's just final checks and balances. I could probably have submitted it that night, but I just wanted to make sure everything that I was giving to the auditors was 100% buttoned up and correct. We made that timeline and we feel really good about it. I do understand that there was some emotions that took place, and hearing that can be, hearing the feedback, the objective feedback of a county commission board could be sometimes difficult to hear for leadership. However, I think it's important that we always receive that, honest feedback, regardless of where the chips may fall, and so that we can react to it. And for that, I'm grateful for the county commission board for what they had to say. And I promised them, and I promise this board here and now, that we'll never be late on an audit again. And we have our next audit 9/30 of 26. And I guarantee you that we will be totally under that window and fully submitted before then, and have everything back by 9/30/26 to the government. Full stop. And there's no excuse to not have it done. And so we're tracking toward that, and we feel really good about our process. We have all the support we need. We have a really good system going right now, the right people in place to get it done. To the county commissioners, if I could say anything, I would just apologize for the lack of professionalism in the financial business unit here at Weston County Health Services, but I will not let that happen again. And so, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I do have if there are no questions or comments, I do have another issue that I'd like to discuss with the team here. There is a boiler issue here at Weston County Health Services. We had contracted with an organization to get their advice with respect to our boiler and kind of how to maintain the boiler over time and across different weather patterns and all of that. And it seems like that we had perhaps received some bad advice. And so we are right now in the process of getting more quotes, but we have a quote of $61,136 to repair, $61,114, I apologize, to repair the boiler system. However, I'd like to perhaps table this for another day because I'd like to get another quote, right? We only have one quote right now for the repair. I think it's good financial discipline to at least have three. I've been told that because of the unique nature of the boiler and the repair that needs to happen, there's probably only one other person in this given area that could actually do it. So we're going to wait for that quote as well. My plan is to reach out to the CEO of Snowcrest Chemical with our maintenance leader, Ron, to have a conversation about how this actually happened in the first place, as they are the experts in what they're doing, and see what could be done about the $61,114 expense that we will now have to incur based off of their advice. And so we can save some of this for executive session, and I'm happy to dive into it, but that's where it sits right now. I remain encouraged, though, that there's a solution to be found that's not too dramatic, and it just shouldn't have happened, essentially, is the messaging that I've received and what I understand. So, and that is it for the CEO's comments.
Okay, and Dottie, you guys haven't had your meeting yet?
No,
So,
next week.
yeah, so, and then on the bylaws, I have dropped the ball and we have not had a bylaws meeting. Anyway, but I think it is, so I'm hoping, William and Mary, that, we can go really hard on that this month and in February so that we can actually have some finished bylaws to show you guys in March. So, because we have to get them voted, or we should get them voted on and stuff. Okay. So I kind of realized the timeline here a few days ago. I was like, oh my stars, what have I done? Anyway, so anything else, William?
Yeah. Three things. One's for you.
Yes, I need them.
When I submit documents to you, please let me know if you received them and if you can use them. So I don't want to turn my mind to something else and it goes on for days. I wonder if she got them. I wonder that helps. I would report that a first draft has been prepared through the end of Article 3, before we had Articles 1 and 2. So that's ready for the committee to look at. I take it today you're wanting people to go past Article 3 without waiting. But anyway, that's ready.
I'm not, that's not what I just want us to start working on it. And
Okay.
I know it's my fault that we have not worked on it this past week.
And lastly, I have this question. Don't know I need an answer today or if it needs one at all, but here's the question. May I communicate with Allison on legal or quasi-legal issues that arise in the bylaws committee? For example, this is part of Article 3, executive session. Now that's under Wyoming law, that's permissive. The Wyoming Public Meetings Act makes, interestingly enough, all executive sessions permissive. Well, when is executive session mandatory? Since the current bylaws purport to say how to handle executive session, I don't think they say it very well. I think that starting out, you work on things, you can change your mind when you get into it, but I'd like them to be clearer about when there shall be executive session for the board. Because that's a big one to screw up. But I would rather see if I can get language right that Allison likes before it goes to the finance committee, gets voted on and adopted, and then goes to the attorney. No, we shouldn't have done that. It might just save a lot of work. So that's my question. an issue and trying to get redraft of bylaws where it looks like it might just save a lot of time to just bring the issue to Allison first. Would that be all right?
Allison, what do you think?
I would prefer that I review them before they're submitted to the board. Normally your policy is that the chairman or the CEO directs the legal work, just so we don't have too many things that I'm referred to look into that are not pertinent to the entire board's work. But this is a very appropriate area for me to weigh in. And William, just so you know, I didn't write those bylaws, though I have tried to help edit them as requested once.
I appreciate knowing that. Thank you.
I was gonna tell you that those bylaws are from Google, but.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah.
So, now I raised that question with the board. Is there any sense of the board on that?
Personally, I would like to have Allison's approval before ours. I think that's well and good and appropriate and wonderful.
I will agree with you that it could save a lot of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we could adopt something that we think was glorious and our attorney look at it and find out that maybe it's not so glorious.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to argue over something only to find out at the end of the process that I missed something obvious. Jeez. All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So do we need to do anything with that? Do we need to make any?
I wouldn't think so. Because if we did, we'd have to have a motion. You can only do a half an hour a month.
Well, and that's something you guys can come to a consensus in your meeting, when you meet.
Yeah, that would be even better, that, because
Yeah.
the committee would
Mhm.
agree to, well, that's kind of what we want, and then pass it on to.
Yep.
That is a good thought.
Okay, the other thing that we should make note of is that, the February 4th through 23rd is the special district. Is the filing period for those of us who are gonna put our names in. So, anyway.
You do that at the courthouse?
No,
Here at Denise's.
I have the applications and I'm also a notary, so you can do it all with me. If you want, or you can take it.
So there's no confusion, just bring up, and I know it was possibly talked about, if you're filling someone's term, that you're running on their term, so that even though you may just be a brand new board member, that to keep that in mind when that term ended, so that you may need to go in and fill out an application. And
So, yeah, there's currently 5 positions open and 3 are 4-year terms and 2 are 5-year terms. To your point, right?
And
Am I right?
right, and William, I looked up that, or maybe Allison could tell us. Allison, everybody who was appointed has to run at the next election, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so that means that there'll be 5 of us this time.
And any one of us can choose to run for a 2-year term or a 4-year term.
I had 2 different applications.
just throwing it out so everybody.
How many
aware.
2-year and how many 4-year?
So there's 3 4-year positions and 2 2-year positions.
And we still have another meeting in the middle of that, like we have our February meeting yet.
It's February 19th.
So,
19th.
so we still have one more meeting before that has to be done.
Okay, I have a question on that then. Is what if five people that have to file, if we all decide to run, what if everybody does the 2-year?
Then we'd be
That's
a
okay.
mess.
Well, that's okay. Then you
Pick
could have,
two.
so it's basically 2 different races. So if 5 people register for the 2-year term, then it's pick the top 2 vote getters of the 5. And if 5 people run for the 4-year term, it's pick
Top 3.
the top 3 of the people who ran for the 4-year term. It isn't like the
Right.
2 lowest vote getters get the 2-year term. It isn't like that. It's 2 separate races. So when you choose to run, you have to choose which race you want to run in.
Right.
So, it's if only one person registers for the 2-year term, then there sort of is an election for the 2-year term, right?
From what I understand, so if only one person runs and there's 2 seats open, then the board has to appoint the person, the second person.
But it'd be kind of nice to know who has filed, if it's somebody on this board, for a 4-year term or a 2-year term, is all I'm saying.
Which I think Denise, it's obvious, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
That-
it's
yeah,
not a secret.
It just seems silly that,
I know that would be really silly for 5 of us to put in for the 2-year term.
Well, we kind
that's-
of didn't realize that the last time,
Right,
remember,
right, we
nobody
didn't know.
ran for the 2-year term and then somebody kind of swapped. So, yeah, we didn't realize that it was.
okay,
2
so we
separate
can
elections.
like talk amongst ourselves
Yeah.
and say,
Yeah.
I'm gonna run, but I'm putting in for the 2-year or the 4-year or whatever. Perfect.
Okay, so are we good? For anything else that we need to talk about?
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
I would like for you to call a break.
Okay, I will call a break. So we'll take a break for the next, let's 5 minutes, is that too
No.
short?
10.
10 minutes is better?
I thought you said 10 the first time. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Please,
we'll have 10 minutes and then, we'll come back and start into executive session.
That way, do both things. Go over to the bathroom and get a sandwich.
Yeah, you're right.
session.
I'll do it. But Ben is doing it this time. I'll do the one. Okay, under Wyoming statute 16-4-4058 consider the employment right to practice or dismissal of public officer, professional person or employee, and to consider or receive any information classified as confidential by law, including attorney-client privilege communications, patient information, quality information, and trade trade secrets. I move that we move into executive session.
Nobody wants a second, I'll second.
Thank you, Derek. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same. We'll move into executive session.
So it's 8:56 and we're back in regular session.
Is there anything that we need to,
That again.
is there any,
It is 8:56 and we are back in regular session.
is there any motions or anything we need to manage?
Madam Chair, hearing none, I would like to adjourn this meeting.
If that's a motion, I second it.
Okay, all those who want to adjourn the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same.
I never abstain on it.
Not sure.
I never meant the meal either.
Anybody that feels me on that one,
No.
don't even